Welcome to episode 42 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men The Animated Series weekly recap podcast. I'm JC, and I have just combined G Fuel and vitamin C.
I was going to try to come up with a funny name. That's not going to work. I'm Rod.
Nope.
I'm bad at jokes. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single episode of the original 1992 X-Men The Animated Series in their original intended script order, building up to the release of X-Men 97, coming in Disney Plus in 2023.
Some quick reminders. We are a recap show about a series that came out 27 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, come back. We'll do our best to avoid mentioning anything about future episodes that we haven't covered yet. And we are currently not sponsored by or affiliated with Disney or Disney Plus in any way, shape, or form.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, make sure to follow us on all your favorite podcast services. Finally, we record these episodes in batches right now, so if we're reacting to any news about the upcoming series, we'll be a few weeks behind. As far as I know, there's nothing new coming out. I guess catch up on Instagram posts if you want. We've been a lot more active on there. There's a TJ Maxx, like, live, laugh, love sign with Rogue Swamp Rat quote on there. I want somebody to print that out and make it for real, like, put it in their place.
And now on to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 4, Episode 6, titled Courage. It aired on September 25th of 1995. Currently sits at a 7.5 star rating on IMDb. This seems higher than what this episode should have got.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite. I don't have any recollection of this one before watching it today, actually.
Yeah, and also apparently there is a story point that Matt Robb remembered in our HeroClix unboxing episode that I did not. Called him wrong on it. And then this was the episode that he was actually referencing. Sorry, Matt. So, starts out on Muir Island. Moira is scanning Morph, and essentially she says, you know, you're as healthy as you're going to be, you know, if you're over the nightmares, but you should take it easy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's going to go back to being a hard life. It's not easy to be an X-Men. I would imagine that as being the X-Men who has come closest to dying, aside from Jean, he's aware of this.
Yeah. I also love how the X-Men don't have any protocol for easing back into things. They're just like, you're either on Muir Island, you know, recovering with Moira, or like you get back and we're just going to throw you in war right away.
So Morph hops on a plane and flies home to the States. As that happens, we cut to a lab, and it looks like they're putting together spools of some giant material. It looks kind of like giant tinfoil. We know that's not the case, but it just literally looked like giant tinfoil to me.
I'm so glad you were able to see that, because I was looking, I was like, I can't tell what this is supposed to be animated as. It just looked like a chemical plant to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a chemical plant, but the item being produced were giant spools of something that, like I said, at this point, we think it's like, you know, the equivalent of a, you know, Reynolds wrap.
I love that we zoom into like a specific scientist who's complaining about the $1 billion business they have got going, but they can't get their cell phones to work correctly.
Yeah, it was like $800 million on materials, but they couldn't get their cell phone. He also had like one of the more modern versions of a cell phone that we've seen in the show so far.
Yeah, it wasn't like the car brick.
No, it was not the car brick. It actually had like a flip to it.
Yeah.
God, our phones were garbage back then. Luckily for this gentleman, 4 Sentinels attack. And we don't really know what they're attacking for at first. They kind of are a little coy about showing that it's the Sentinel at the beginning. You're seeing like glimpses as opposed to the full Sentinel. But then you get the reveal that they're just straight up stealing these material spools. Yeah. Jump over to the mansion. Everybody is running to the war room. And there's this really interesting animation shot where it's Beast and Wolverine running side by side through the hallways that I almost got nauseous from with the animation choice that it was. It was like, it was very choppy. It had a really weird frame rate to it, and I was not loving it.
I was preoccupied and distracted by like how I was, it was like, the color scheme made me think that it was Rogue in that group, but it didn't look like Rogue, and then I had like focus on it. I was like, that's Storm in a really wild new outfit.
Yeah, Storm was in just a different outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unlike 2 episodes ago where we were talking about the Wolverine and Rogue outfits being created for the toy line, I found no reference to this Storm outfit anymore.
When I was a kid, I got all the Storm stuff, and I don't remember this one at all. Like I said, in my head, I was like, well, Storm and Rogue do go shopping a lot together, so this looked like an outfit that Rogue would have picked out for Storm. Just kind of the color scheme, you know?
But the funny thing for me, like to go off on the action figure tangent, is the Storm figure that originally came out was not the animated series outfit.
Yeah.
It was a all black outfit with a yellow lightning bolt that lit up inside of her. So it was forever before we got an outfit that was actually matching this one.
And it was just like a repaint of that old one with a plastic like wing cape thing.
Right.
That they added to it.
Yep. But as they run into this room, everybody's panicking, kind of like wondering what's going on. And they see there's a welcome home banner.
Yeah.
And everybody's super confused. They're like, but Gambit and Rogue are going to be gone for another week. It's like, Wait, what?
Yeah, where'd they go?
Where did they go together? That's just completely brushed off, and I guess it is what it is. You know, they had like catering and stuff like that. I was like,
in the middle of the night.
Yeah, they're like, this is kind of weird. But Wolverine is the first to realize it, and he actually smells in disbelief, and it's Morph who walks through the door.
It's a bromance, man.
It's a total bromance moment. It is everything that Deadpool wants to have with Wolverine, because he knows it can exist from Morph.
Yeah. And we don't know if it's even if Deadpool wants to have the relationship with Wolverine or Hugh Jackman.
It's both.
Yeah.
Deadpool is selfish. But as we're getting this, heartfelt reunion, there's an alert from Zydex Industries, which has no real meaning or anything behind it, that has been attacked, and they were creating a synthetic polymer. Professor X is like, we should investigate this.
Because I think they said it was like as thin as cloth and 100 times like stronger than steel.
Right.
So it was like, okay, who could want this?
So, to Rod's point, there is no time to welcome somebody back and make sure they're fit and in fighting shape. It's like, you should go.
Go check this out.
Morph, wanting to be a team player on this, accepts, and him and Wolverine are going to go. He promises he'll take it easy, but he goes through a series of changes. He transforms into a John Wayne style character. He gives the Pilgrim comment, so that's how you knew it was John Wayne. He transforms into Strong Guy, and he also transforms into this nerdy scientist. I couldn't place who the nerdy scientist was.
I don't know who the random dude was. The John Wayne thing was interesting to me because not only is he a known character, but also in the real world. And it wasn't just that he was a John Wayne-like character, because I watched the subtitles on. They actually said as John Wayne.
Oh, they actually acknowledge it in the subtitles?
Interesting. So either there was, I don't know, it was just some writer's joke or whatever, because there was no real highlighted reason that John Wayne should have showed up in a kid's show. I mean,
no, but it does go back to the original episode where Morph debuted, and he's just turning into the people on TV and making the Richard Nixon style jokes. Yeah. It's very much his MO. But the thing that is interesting, in theory, I don't know if there's any way, and this is something I saw online. It is not my own theory, but I am totally backing it, that he would know who Strong Guy was, because the first time they see Strong Guy, he's a member of this military unit with X-Force. X-Factor. But he makes a comment that's wrestling vibes. So there's a theory that Strong Guy, before joining X-Factor, was publicly a wrestler, which would make sense for him from a body type perspective. And that's why he makes the wrestling comment for
tracks.
it. Yeah.
I also had another note here that Wolverine is so visibly happy.
Yes.
And I don't think we've seen Wolverine this genuinely happy since he got Kazar's tiger, Zabu, as a pet. Wolverine just needed a cat to be happy, or Morph.
He needed a saber-toothed tiger. Him with a regular cat would not have cut it.
We don't know that yet. We haven't seen him.
So Wolverine and Morph head out together. They get to the location, and then they use a drone to scout the area, which at the time was
pretty futuristic.
Yeah, and it has a GoPro that's broadcasting to them essentially. But the shot is really weird, where they do the stare towards the camera, look at each other, pause, look back at the camera, pause, look back at each other, pause, and then they say something. It is...
Yeah, there's no dialogue.
There's no dialogue. It's just really weird. We have to pad out 10 seconds to show what the drone is seeing. And, Wolverine and Morph are breaking into a government facility. Again,
As far as PTSD is let's send Morph to doing the last thing he did where he almost died.
Yeah, so that was... That was a thing. Morph pulls a classic trick where he turns into a soldier, essentially somebody's higher rank, tells the person on guard to keep moving, that he's being relieved. Wolverine cuts through a padlock to let them in, and at that time a helicopter goes overhead. So timing was a thing. They start running. Wolverine sees a wall and just decides, I'm going to cut through this. They break into the area that had been attacked previously by those Sentinels. Of course, because the Sentinels were there, Wolverine smells something. So I don't know if there's maybe some specific combination of polymer and oil or whatever it is, but the nose knows, and he very quickly is like, yep, didn't find anything, let's go.
Yeah, he's like, oh no, of all the things.
Yeah, and obviously Morph doesn't question it. He's like, okay, cool. But as they're walking out, he sees the giant Sentinel footprint. And I was wondering, were they trying to show PTSD? And it's actually confirmed previously on the making of an animated series that it was intentionally meant to be a PTSD style moment.
Yeah, because he's heavily triggered, which fair.
So at that point, Morph sees it. He reacts to it. He essentially asked Wolverine, did you know? And Wolverine, falters for a second. And as he does that, Morph is like, you don't have to baby me. I'm good. Cut back to the mansion. They're still in the war room. Beast is taking down decorations. And it's like, oh, this must really suck for Morph. And he kind of gives a Moby Dick comparison.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if this is exactly a Moby Dick scenario.
Yeah, because he was hunting him, and that became his thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, Morph isn't actively going after the Sentinels.
Right.
It's just something from his past that was like the most traumatic thing.
Right. And I mean, I guess it could be seen that, you know, Ahab was hunting Moby Dick and Moby Dick was also hunting Ahab, but at least then it was like a two-sided scenario.
Yeah.
This is a little closer to like It Follows.
Yeah.
We find out, you know, this like cave in a desert scenario that Master Mold is still around. And it's
just his head.
Just his head. And it's looking to be rebuilt utilizing those polymers that the Sentinels had stolen and needs to bring Bolivar Trask and Henry Gyrich, you know, to help finish off the scenario. And two things that happen. One, the voice changed, both for Master Mold
Yeah, and Sentinels.
and the Sentinels.
Yeah,
The voice did change.
I had to note that they're all weird voices, but also they're more like human now. Before they're very robotic,
Yeah.
just reading almost lines of code, and now they're having like conversations pretty casually.
Right. And the Sentinel essentially pushes back and being like, yeah, we're not supposed to like touch humans. And Master Mold like eye zaps him and reprograms him. He's like, all right, fuck it, let's go. And then he also calls for the mutant who destroyed my body, which, you know, we all know Xavier flew a Blackbird into them. Which was Rod's favorite scene because there was gasoline and dynamite in the cockpit of the Blackbird.
Yeah. And it was completely safe.
Yep. At the mansion, Xavier and Morph are talking, and Morph knows that he messed up, and you know, Xavier is kind of, maybe we brought you back too early. Maybe you know, maybe we have to ease you back into this. And Morph, you know, gives the respectful, you got to let me try. I'm never going to fix this if I don't try.
That being said, they literally have one of the most advanced training systems ever in
Yes.
the Danger Room, and they didn't even try that.
No, they probably should.
To just see let's just see if the Sentinels still trigger you.
Yep. And then it could only still happen in the 90s moment. You have kids in a park
Yeah, like
at night.
Yeah, after sundown at the very
Yes.
least.
So at the earliest possible, this is like 7 p.m. at night because it was dark. It wasn't even twilight. It was dark.
Am I getting my timeline right? That everyone was asleep and they had been woken up by this?
So I think they didn't do a great job of showing this is actually like the next day.
Yeah.
Because to your point, if they had been woken up by this, that means they were woken up by the return. They flew out to this facility, and then kids are playing in a park at like 4:30 in the morning. So I think this is like a next
Day.
night.
Okay.
Yeah. It may have supposed to have been the next day because Jean and Scott and Storm are in a car.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know if it was like that was supposed to be morning and it never got translated appropriately.
Like, it was like very early in the morning. Well, still, but kids in the park. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think there was something mistranslated to the animators that they didn't know was supposed to be daytime.
Gotcha.
That is the only scenario because like are Xavier and Morph going to be like walking outside at 4:35 in the morning after just returning from a trip? Like, also, dude just traveled from a transcontinental flight right into a mission. He should be sleeping. I'm sorry.
And so, like you said, Cyclops, Jean, and Storm are in a car, and the Sentinels also fly over them.
Right.
And they're all like, oh, that can't be good.
Right. And then there's an intruder alert, and as that happens, 3 of the Sentinels attack on the lawn, and they are targeting Xavier directly.
Mm-hmm. Beast and Wolverine run outside. Xavier's out there too. He has like a hidden gun, like a handgun in his.
Yeah, he has a handgun like in his floating wheelchair, which is pretty sick.
Morph's out there too, but he just freezes up.
Yeah, and I feel like Xavier should have reacted a little quicker. Mm-hmm. He has the gun, but he doesn't start like taking shots very quickly. The Sentinels go for the capture on him. Beast pops out, and he has his like backpack gun thing, which I guess is the expansion on that Shi'ar tech that he has. Because let's be real, Beast without a gun, not super effective against the Sentinels.
Yeah.
But he does shoot one right through the chest, which is pretty damn impressive.
Awesome.
Yeah. He starts shooting at a second one while the third one flies off with Xavier though. And Morph is crying. Like he's suffering. He froze. He knows he let people down, but what else was he going to do kind of scenario.
Yeah. And inside the mansion, they can't find Xavier, and Jean says like she knows that he's unconscious because she can't find him.
Right.
Telepathically either.
Yeah, and they realized he had gone southwest. They knew the direction that they were flying.
Well, I guess that's true. You could see them at least.
Yes, because robots are going to go the quickest route. They're not going to we're going to divert up through Canada. Robots don't need to divert.
And Morph is understandably blaming himself. Wolverine's trying to comfort him because Morph is the only person Wolverine actually cares about emotionally.
Yeah, Morph calls himself worthless. Wolverine says nobody blames you. Scott says both of you shut up.
I love that because I was like, it's just so urgent, but also man, he's just a real buzz killer. He didn't have to.
There was zero empathy from Scott at that point. Scott is very much the let's get down to business. He has Beast hack into it, and there's 2 sets of coordinates.
Oh, into the Sentinel head.
Into the Sentinel head. Sorry, yeah. The Sentinel that Beast shot through, the head was not horribly damaged. It was enough that he could still make some information out without overloading it. There's 2 sets of coordinates in there. So one of them, they call the mansion. What's interesting is the actual coordinates are closer to the New York-Canadian border as opposed to New York City. And then the other one, which is assumed to be where Gyrich and Trask are, is actually in the middle of the ocean.
Okay, so wait, cave in the... Okay, sure.
No, it's a translation scenario where the numbers were not...
They just picked a number.
Yeah, they just picked numbers, essentially.
And then Cyclops is like, well, we're all going to go get him. And then he's like, except you, Morph.
Yeah, we need somebody to stay behind in case Professor X reaches back out to us.
Which, they finally found someone to replace Jubilee for staying home.
Here's the thing, though, man. I get it.
Yeah.
After this dude just froze, he's not the one you want to bring back out untested.
Yeah.
You've already seen...
It happened twice.
Yeah, it's happened twice in a very rapid succession. Mm-hmm. So, jump over to, the jungle setting, and Gyrich and Trask are in this, hut that they've built. They're arguing. Gyrich is mad because he caught a fish and Trask hasn't really done anything, I guess is the impression.
I love that I kind of want to see a mini sitcom of this odd couple scenario between these two living in the jungle together. Because it's they've just both decided this is their best case scenario.
Just be off grid.
But off grid together and they hate each other.
Unfortunately for them, the Sentinels appear. They both get grabbed. At the same time, the Blackbird has caught up. Storm flies out of it. Wolverine just dives out and lands on a Sentinel. I mean, I guess when you're that invulnerable, you could just do whatever, and it's fine.
He's used to it now too.
Yeah, they're able to take one down, but the other Sentinels that are there are able to kind of even the odds. The Blackbird, they have a little bit of a back and forth. One of the Sentinels gets impaled by a rock, right through. That. Yeah, it was a really... It looked almost like it should have been a fatality. Kind of
it's a Mortal Kombat thing, you just dropped into the pit.
Yep. But of course, there is one that survives the fight, and it is able to grab Trask and Gyrich and fly off.
And back at the mansion, Morph decides to take matters in his own hands. He overloads the Sentinel head and then finds a 3rd set of coordinates. And he's like...
Which only had one number, which is not how coordinates work.
Right. He's like, oh no, now I have to go because I guess he didn't even think to maybe communicate to them, but sure.
I got the vibe he thought to communicate it, but he was like, I need to prove myself.
Yeah. So he goes to that coordinate.
Everybody essentially arrives at very similar times. So that the Sentinel, which is carrying Xavier, arrives first. The Blackbird follows. We realize that Master Mold wants to use Xavier's brain and amplify his power as a way of controlling humanity. Mm-hmm. And he calls that irony. It's not actually irony.
I guess he was saying using a mutant's powers to destroy mutants, maybe. It was a very Alanis Morissette irony.
Yeah, it was definitely an Alanis one.
Wasn't it the plot to one of the X-Men movies too, using Cerebro and Xavier against the rest of the world?
It's been so long since I've watched them.
Yeah, I vaguely remember something like that, where amplified Xavier's power is going to kill all the mutants on the Earth or something.
This would later get used in Uncanny Avengers, which was a Avengers team that was half mutant, half standard Avengers, and the Red Skull used Xavier's brain to amplify hate.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Because there was a point where Xavier was dead in the comics.
Okay, sure.
Yep. X-Men attack. They start getting the upper hand, but Storm almost gets buried underneath some rubble. Right. Tide starts to turn. As it's happening, Morph...
It's great. He saves the day.
He saves the day. He first turns into Omega Red, which also don't know when he saw Omega Red.
Right.
Because Omega Red was not around in the early years, unless, I don't know, maybe Wolverine told him about him or something like that. So let's give a pass on Omega Red. As he takes out the Sentinels, there's a stray shot from one of the Sentinel hand beams that shoots the harness that is holding the Master Mold's head, so that drops to the ground. Another one grabs Morph. He turns into Sasquatch from Alpha Flight, showcasing the strength. And this one was a little bit different, and I think we had this similar challenge with Mystique, where it looks like he's not only physically turning into them, but he's also acquiring their powers.
Yeah.
I think that one's a little bit of a leap. It's a
little mystical on top
Yeah.
of the physical thing.
Right. At one point, Jean is in need of saving. He transforms into the classic Angel, costume, which we've seen a lot of that costume in the last, 3 of the last 4 episodes, essentially.
That one kind of makes sense because he would have known him from the OG team.
At the very least, he would have had access to the tapes and stuff that would have had it. Yeah, absolutely.
So this was my real question was, he turned into Longshot. Where would that have come from?
At that point, we see these little, spider legs pop out of Master Mole's head, and that's how it starts to, do battle with him, essentially. And then he turns into Longshot.
Yeah, where would he have seen Longshot?
I think that is the one that is the harder of the ones to explain. The strong guy one is a leap.
Yeah.
Omega Red, maybe Mutant Files. Obviously Angel and Sasquatch, those seem realistic because he never would have seen Longshot.
He's so far removed from the team to the point that the last time Longshot appeared, no one else knew who he was.
Exactly. Yeah, Jubilee didn't even know who he was at that point. So, I don't know. I think maybe your only chance of that would have been if something was recorded when Longshot showed up with Jubilee and then they were sharing information with Moira. I think that's the only chance of that happening, but it's definitely a reach.
Or in his free time, he was just watching the tapes.
Right.
Or something.
I don't know. That one definitely also feels a little bit of a reach. But he does get his revenge on Master Mold. He shoots one of the
Tights, right?
Tights?
Yeah, they're the ones that hang from the ceiling.
Yes. Okay. Let's
because stalagmites are on the ground, right?
Sure, I don't know. But he shoots the top of the cave, and the spike goes right through Master Mold's head.
Fatality.
That starts a chain of events that essentially everybody has to run out. They do bring Iric and Trask with them. We don't know what happens to them.
Yeah,
but they're with them getting boarded onto the plane. Morph lets Wolverine and Xavier know that he can't stay. He's just not ready yet. Wolverine obviously doesn't want to see his best friend leave, but Xavier tells him to let him go, and when he can, he'll be back. And it's kind of a somber ending because it's Morph had his moment. Obviously, the theme of the episode being courage of he came back when it counted and he saved the day, but he's still not ready to stay.
Yeah. And even as I could see as a writer in the meta world, for the show, it's probably good that they probably need him to not always be there because otherwise, since we said, we established that he gets people's powers, way too overpowered to make an interesting story believably.
Yeah, and that was actually something that Eric talked about in the book too, was they needed to give Morph a little bit of a resolution because you had him in the first episodes disappears for essentially he's not a member of the team for 49 episodes.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So second season he came back?
Yeah, with the Sinister episodes.
Yeah.
And he was going through, and they had to give his story a little bit of a resolution to show that he's okay and he's not the dark version of Morph anymore. But they also needed to give a reason why wouldn't he rejoin the team fully? And this was kind of their way of doing it.
And then, do we know if he comes back again? I honestly can't remember if he does or not.
I know because of something I read, but I don't want to mention it. No.
As far as I'm with the audience in this, I don't remember a whole lot from this point on in the show, or even a few episodes ago from the show, because this is where the hazy area happens, where we didn't all watch all the episodes.
Right.
So I don't remember if he comes back. Part of me kind of wants to start an online poll of for X-Men 97. It's does Morph survive?
So yes, because they've literally revealed his artwork.
Yeah. But I mean, does he survive the initial show?
Does he survive X-Men 97?
Yeah.
Got
or do they retread history and be first episode, he goes on a mission and gets shot?
That would be so fucked up.
It's he's the Kenny of the X-Men universe. Oh my God, they killed Morph.
That's awful. That's absolutely awful.
Because it keeps happening. This is the first time he's run away. Well, actually, even this time he gets shot up, and they're peace, gotta go. He's keeps being traumatized.
Yes, he's a very traumatized character, and that's why he responds with humor. He's like every comedian in Los Angeles. Yeah, there's not a ton of other stuff around this other than the original writer, Dean Steffens, actually wrote this episode originally under a pen name, because if you actually look at his IMDb, the list of writing credits he had at the time was so absurd that there may have been conflicts of other contracts at the time.
Oh, okay.
But I looked up this dude's IMDb before. I'll share a screenshot of it. It is absolutely insane how many cartoons from the 90s that he was the writer on. It's an unreal, basically everything except for Batman the Animated Series, this dude was a writer on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a Conan O'Brien. We're well, we didn't know how much you wrote before.
Absurd amount of writing. Yeah.
My first time I visited LA, like years and years and years ago, I met some TV writers and stuff, and that was my first exposure to like how a lot of those writers would use pen names for different projects. They wanted to be associated with different genres.
Right.
Like, I was talking to somebody about like how at the time, this didn't age well, and I don't love the show anymore, but at the time I was really into that show, Drawn Together. They were very absurd and like irreverent and stuff. Doesn't age well, but
I could see that not aging well.
And so some people I met in LA were like, "Oh yeah, we wrote on that show." I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, but we don't take credit for it." I'm like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, no one takes credit for that show because we all want to keep working." So they all had their own pen names to work on that show.
You know, looking back, the main name associated to that show is Adam Carolla.
Yeah, right.
But I can't think of anybody else associated to it at this point.
Well, and the people I met, I don't know if they were like well-known names or if they were. I'm not aware of them and stuff. But they were just all like, they're working LA writers and stuff. So like, we don't want someone, from like Disney or Nickelodeon to try to hire us and be like, you worked on Drawn Together.
Yeah, fair. I mean, you're literally talking to the guy who worked for WWE for 2.5 years. So I get it. I was not there when Vince beat God, though.
Yeah.
That was 3 weeks before I started.
Funny. In real life, I got to talk to you because I got suggestions at this convention I was just at last week where virtually every YouTube friend I haven't seen in a while is like, Rod, and your show on your main channel, you should hit up like some of the wrestling music people and stuff. I was like, I have a friend I need to talk about that too because I know nothing about the wrestling world.
WWE has Jim Johnston and that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. So, well, on that wonderful note, Rod, any final thoughts on this one? At the very least, temporary goodbye of Morph.
If it wasn't for Morph, I wouldn't have liked this episode. Even still, it was still just fine. Like, I feel like it wasn't completely pointless because we did get closure on like the Sentinels, Master Mold, and Morph somewhat. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm not going to watch it again.
When you say the closure of the Sentinels, now I'm curious in the Bishop timeline.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess it's Master Mold may be gone, but we know Sentinels still exist because of our previous episode from 3 weeks ago now in Showtime. They're still on Genosha. So there are still Sentinels in existence outside of Master Mold's little crew.
Yeah. I guess there's always like leftover stock or whatever.
Yeah.
But even in the Bishop episodes, there's like Nimrod and stuff.
Right, because Nimrod has to evolve from the existing Sentinels because he's the super Sentinel.
So I guess that implies that like Iric and Trask or some followers of them have continued the tradition outside of Master Mold.
Which did happen in X-Men House of 92, the comic that is utilizing the world of X-Men 92, retelling modern stories of the Krakoan era.
Your favorite series.
It is really not good. I'm sorry. I mean, I'll give a shout out to the team who's working on the book called Exterminators, which Rod could not have told you who Boom Boom was going into that. But it is Boom Boom, Dazzler, and Jubilee, and I love that series. Right now, it's only one issue out by the time we're doing this recording. She's my spirit animal. Like, Boom Boom is fucking great. Boom Boom is being yelled at to go out drinking, and she needs to drink 4 beers before going out drinking with Dazzler and Jubilee. So
he's like, these two are too happy. I guess that's true, though. You're going out with 2 mutants who their powers are being sparkly.
Which, if that was me in real life, I would have exactly Boom Boom's reaction of... Oh, these are the light show girls.
Let me do some
This is like the fucking mutant equivalent of the Woo girls, basically.
Yeah.
And a little FYI, we're going to take a week off. Things are getting busy here at the end of the year, so we need to catch up on some stuff. But you should take this as an opportunity to catch up on older episodes of ours if you've missed them. There's plenty of them. But we'll be back not next week, but the week after.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload, official Instagram post about this episode. And if you like what you heard, we appreciate a rating on the podcast app of your choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox. Oh God, where's the NyQuil?